NFL Week 6, college football Week 7. We've got a preview and, of course, betting picks on today's episode. Alex, let's start this off with the Thursday night football game, 49ers, Seahawks. I think this should be a pretty fun game. Niners, we've talked about them on the podcast, Alex. They've been disappointing this year. But here's the thing about 49ers. They're still, according to PFF, the number one offense, number one in passing offense, number three in receiving offense, number two in run blocking, number six ranked defense. When you look at the analytics for this team, you would think they should be undefeated. Now, they've had some tough losses. Seattle, on the other hand, they're a good team, but on paper, I still think this 49ers team is a way better team than them. Typically, the home team is the play here, but favorites tend to cover on Thursday night football. So I'm going to take the 49ers here. I don't love that it's the 3.5. That half point is a killer, but I think this has really become a must-win situation for them after giving away games versus the Rams and the Cardinals. They really got to get back on track here and get a W. I think they get it done against this Seahawks team. What are your thoughts?
Actually, I don't think they do. I think the 49ers are in trouble now. Ayuk seems to have taken his 4-week training camp in season, and as we saw, he looks like he's back on track. But I'm excited for what I'm seeing with this Seahawks team. Now, I picked the Seahawks, but there's a caveat. This Seahawks team can win if you're telling me Kenneth Walker is healthy and they're going to run both he and Zach Charbonnet, because that offensive line is battered. If I'm not mistaken, they did sign Jason Peters, or they signed one of the old guys not too long ago. So when you're doing that, you're in trouble. So this needs to be a run-heavy offense. Keep their offense off the field. Their offense is also dense, so I think that Gino should be able to hit DK deep, because young Palomalo, or Hayufunga, as most of you call him, is out for 4 weeks already. He was already coming off injury. So I'm looking for the Seahawks to make a big splash here and kind of keep trending up. I did pick them in the beginning of the season to only have 5 to 6 wins, but they're showing me that they're ready, and this defense is flying around. Now, they're not great, but they are flying around, following behind their coach McDonald.
So I take it you want Seattle. You're taking the 3.5. Are you taking them on the money
Yeah,
line as
I'm
well?
gonna take, and I'm gonna take them. I'm gonna take them. No, I'm gonna take the 3.5. I'm definitely taking the 3.5.
3.5. Okay. Yeah, it is. There's definitely some value there. Don't get me wrong. There certainly is. I think it's a spot where the Niners could bounce back, but that should be a really good Thursday night football game. Lions, Cowboys. This is a big time matchup, of course. These teams have really played each other a lot in the last couple of years. Everything the Lions do great, I think, plays right into the Cowboys' biggest weaknesses. And the Lions, I think, should dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball here, especially in the run game. I think this is a game where they run the ball down Dallas's throat. It's who they are. It's who they want to be. It's their DNA, and it's what Dallas struggles with. So I think they could be in some serious trouble here. Detroit is a 3-point favorite. Goff is great indoors. We know he's a much better player in the dome. And Dallas, look, they were terrible last week. It kind of all got erased after Dak had the great drive to win the game. We kind of forget how bad Dallas really looked overall. I'm not impressed with them. They escaped Pittsburgh with a win. But look, I think in this matchup, the Lions come in, assert their dominance. I think they stomp the Cowboys here.
Yeah, I think, like you said, this is a knife to Swiss cheese right here. They're gonna slice and dice this defensive lineup. They're still gonna be without Micah, still without Demarcus Lawrence. They don't have any true defensive tackles or true run stoppers there. And here come the Lions with the probably the number 1 or 2 offensive line, 2 healthy running backs. This should be a big, huge Gibbs and Montgomery game. Fantasy alert as well for that. But they should be able to control the ball, keep Dak and team off the field. And even when they get on the field, they should be throwing, which should also play into their hands with Aiden Hutchinson going against Tyler Guyton, who actually started out well, but was a guy that I picked that I said I did not like. And now he's reverted to what I saw on tape from college. He's now reverting to that in the NFL. It's not going to be a pretty day for the Cowboys. This is a blowout. Give me the Lions and lay the points.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it gets ugly, and I think it actually gets ugly in a hurry. How about the battle for Maryland? I guess we've got Commanders Ravens here. AFC NFC battle here, in-state game. This should be fun though. I think this is a really interesting matchup that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think this is a game people would have circled at the beginning of the season, but with the way Jane Daniels has played, the hot start to this Washington team, all of a sudden this becomes one of the better matchups in the NFL this week. I'm looking at a couple key spots though. I think the Ravens secondary has been surprisingly bad this year. And I can actually see Jane Daniels having some success in this game, maybe having a good game, but this isn't the Cardinals, this isn't the Browns, and this isn't the Bengals, who all have terrible, terrible defenses. I think the hype has gotten a little too high for this team right now and a little too high for Jane Daniels. Look, I'm not trying to say this kid isn't playing great. He is, and this team has been fun to watch. But they're going into a game now where this is a battle-tested team in Baltimore. This team, when you look at the advanced analytics, it really is going to show you that this Washington defense is not very good. And their offense has been so good, I think it's kind of masked their issues on defense. Ravens are a 6.5-point favorite. And I typically don't like to lay numbers that big in the NFL, but this feels like a spot where the Ravens really assert their dominance here and kind of rain on the parade, so to speak, of this young Washington team.
So I'm going to talk about this game in two different ways. One, like you said, there's a lot of hype going around. Obviously, Jane Daniels is playing very well. You know, that high completion percentage and how he's taking his time and not making a lot of the big mistakes that most rookie quarterbacks make. However, I think against this team, they actually do have a chance. And that chance is Jaden Daniels' arm. And the reason that is Jaden Daniels on is because he can get deep. And like you mentioned about the Ravens, they can be susceptible to the deep ball because there's a lot of confusion that happens, especially in that second half where it looks like because of a rookie Zach Orr who probably will be a good defensive coordinator, the Ravens don't seem to miss. But this is just he's only 35, 36. He's only like maybe 4 to 5 years removed from playing. So this is just the growing pains, and usually they stick and make their move and stick with their guys, and they end up right. But he has had second half issues with adjustments and not being able to adjust in game to the adjustments at halftime. However, I am going to stick with the Ravens because I think the Ravens. Well, let me take a step back. Washington can win because they do have Frankie Louvu, they do have Bobby Wagner, and then in the middle you have Payne and you have Allen. So if this is any team that's kind of set up to really stop that run, stop that rush, it perhaps may be Washington with those four players that set up the middle, that fill up front, and then at the linebacker position. But one important thing that I learned today from our sports narrative crew is that Dean Pease has been brought in as an advisor to contribute to the exact thing was which I had said was the issue with the Ravens is second half adjustments. You bring in a guy that's familiar with the organization, an older guy that's been around, that's seen basically everything to help Zach Orr with some of those halftime adjustments. Everything that you mentioned that they have an issue with, we might start to see get cleaned up in this game and then going forward where they start to make their run. But I am going to take the Ravens. I'm going to lay the 6.5. I think in the second half, they're going to assert their dominance and they're not going to be able to stop them because Washington still has issues in their defensive backfield.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a game where they pull away and end up covering late. Now, how about the Monday Night Football game? This game was interesting before the news broke, but it just got a lot more interesting now with the Bills and Jets featured on Monday Night Football. Of course, Robert Saleh is out in New York. Aaron Rodgers coming off probably his worst game, one of his worst games we've seen in years with 3 picks over in London. Josh Allen, he's historically struggled against this Jets defense, and he was coming off of a concussion. Look, I don't care what they claim it was. We all know that was a concussion. He didn't look very sharp. I think this is one of those games where, look, both teams really need this win. I think the Bills really need to get back on track. I think the Jets are in really a desperate spot, but I think there's so much to prove for New York with this game. I think after firing their coach, it's almost automatic. We see this year in and year out with in-season firings. How often does the team that fired their coach win the next week? It's almost inevitable. This line has also moved. So if you follow the money here, it's moving towards the Jets. Jets are now down to just plus 2.5 at home. Short home dog, big time matchup. Give me the Jets here. I think they cover and win this game outright. Alex, what are your thoughts on this one?
Okay, so hold my beer, Brad. We're going to take a step back and really look at this Robert Saleh debacle that the Jets have, because it has other implications as well on my Raiders. Because now, since this has happened, miraculously, Devontae Adams has softened his stance miraculously, and Turner Pierce has stopped referring to him as number 17 and then referring to him as his name, and says he can perhaps play if he feels well. So there's implications there, because we know that that was something, as of right now, that can heat up at any point in time. Secondly, the entire way that we heard about Robert Saleh's firing went down, we're all confused. There's rumors all over the place to him getting escorted out by security, him wanting to actually fire Neil Hackett, and then Aaron Rodgers going to the ownership and saying, no, keep my guy and fire Saleh. Listen, Robert Saleh is a defensive coordinator, excuse me, a defensive head coach. His side of the ball is working. Does anybody
Yep.
remember when Tony Dungy was brought in to the Colts? The Colts kept their entire offensive staff from the previous staff. They just told Tony Dungy, fix the defense. And that's what he came in and did. So this is the same thing with Robert Saleh. The defense is fine. The defense is getting them 7 wins a season alone.
Yep.
So if the defense is doing that and the defense is fine, Aaron Rodgers, you were brought in. They gave you your guy Alan Lazard. They gave you Randall Cobb. They gave you guy Neil Hackett. That's on you to fix. They also gave you 2 running backs. So I don't know if it's because at the end of the day, I'm looking at ownership as the issue here. If you fire Robert Saleh, instead of holding Aaron Rodgers accountable and saying, hey, listen, we gave you everything you wanted. This is not on him. Talk to you and your offensive coordinator and why you're not running the ball in a 7-point game. You threw 54 times and only ran 14 times. That doesn't make any sense to me when your strength and your biggest skill set position is running back. But I digress, because I'm going to completely contradict myself, because I'm with you, Brad. I'm going to take the Jets here and lay the 2.5 points, simply because the one thing I do know about Aaron Rodgers, forget him being an a-hole or however people feel about him, when his back is against the wall is when you get a guy. And I'm not saying he's going to go out there and throw 45 TDs and 5 interceptions or whenever Jordan Love was drafted. No, I'm saying that he's going to be dialed and he's going to be practicing and working with these guys in overtime to prove a point that he's right. Arrogance, but he has the skill set to do so. So I'm going to take the Jets here over the Bills.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we'll shift gears here in a second, but I wanted to point out that I heard 2 different Jets insiders in the New York media today report completely different stories. So I don't really know what to make. And these are both respected guys in that New York media that know this team, that have sources, and they both said completely different stories. To your point earlier about I don't think anybody outside of that organization really knows how this whole thing went down. But what a wild just story, and what a wild event that if some of that stuff took place, it's crazy. It's really crazy, and it really makes this organization on the outside looking in, it makes it look really dysfunctional right now. So I think, to your point, Aaron Rodgers is going to have something to prove. This team is going to have something to prove. And I think this is a rallying cry for this team right now, because they know everyone's looking at them. Everyone's kind of pointing the finger. This is going to be a focused effort for them. And I think, unfortunately, it's going to be at the Bills' expense in this one. Let's shift to college football, Alex. We've got some really good matchups this week. We've got some big-time top 25 matchups that are a lot of fun. We've got some rivalry games. We've got games that we got to look at here, Alex. How about number 1 Texas, number 18 Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry? What a classic game this is. This is one of the funnest games every year. college football, circle this game. I don't care if you're from the Midwest, East Coast, West Coast. This is a must-watch game. This is one of those games I look forward to every single year. I'm not sure it lives up to the hype this year, though, because look, Oklahoma's number 18 in the country. Texas number 1, but I think that gap is bigger than those rankings because Texas has blown out all 5 of their opponents this year, and it really doesn't matter who the QB is. Both these quarterbacks are great. Quinn Ewers is supposed to be back for this game. I'm not sure it matters because Arch Manning has been fantastic. This is a balanced attack. They run the ball. They have more team speed than Oklahoma does. And I think when you look at the offense for Oklahoma, it's sputtering right now. Overall, this team, they just haven't been that impressive. I know they have a good record, but when I look at the matchup here, Texas just has too much firepower. I'm surprised it's only 14.5. I'm going to take them to cover here. I think that this game gets away from Oklahoma. I just don't think they can slow down this Texas offense.
While you were talking about it, I was kind of looking to see if we had a confirmed if he's starting or not. But like they said, like you said, it says he could be back, so we still don't know. You know how I felt about this at the beginning. They should have told Quinn he was transfer or go to the NFL, and you should have been starting Arch Manning. This may not be a big game to most people, but if Arch Manning is starting, this is going to be the one time that he faces a ranked team, and we're going to be able to see something that we've been wanting to see is him against some better talent, or at least some ranked talent in that sense. But I'm with you. I'm taking Texas all the way. I don't think Oklahoma's ready for what's about to happen.
Yeah, the Oklahoma defense pretty solid, but they're going to have to be lights out. I mean, look, they're going to have to play a really high level game on the defensive side if they're going to hang around in this one because I don't think they can keep up in a shootout. They're just not built to do that with Texas. Let's go to another SEC matchup. Sounds kind of weird, Texas, Oklahoma, and the SEC, right? I'm still getting used to that.
Right.
But let's go to another SEC matchup. 2 traditional SEC schools. How about number 13 LSU, number 9 Ole Miss? Look, Ole Miss, I liked this team coming into the year a lot. I still think they have a ton of talent. I like their quarterback. Of course, we've talked on this show for really the last, 2 seasons now about Lane Kiffin and how underrated this guy has been and the job he's done with that program. But they've struggled on the road. And when you look at LSU, this team has been great at home. Of course, this game is at LSU, and they have won 13 straight at home, and they're coming off of a bye. They've had extra time to prepare for this game. I don't think Ole Miss really hasn't played its best ball over the last few weeks either. It kind of looks like they're moving in the wrong direction here. I'm taking LSU plus 3.5 points at home. I think there is some big time value getting 3.5 at home here. I'm shocked by this line. I'm not sure what Vegas knows that I don't know. Maybe it's just the rankings. I don't know, but I think 3.5 is way too much for an LSU home team.
Well, I'll say this, you know what they know? They know that Nussmeier is not who most people at LSU thought he was going to be this year. I think that's the big issue there, number one. Now, like you said, Ole Miss giving up 3.5, that's huge here. But I think Brian Kelly needs this. I don't think Lane Kiffin needs it, as I've been saying and going to keep preaching from the top, from the mountaintops, that he's going to leave and go to Florida anyway. But in terms of this game, I'm actually going to take Ole Miss and lay the 3.5. I'm going to take Ole Miss going into LSU and beating them because I just don't believe that that team is ready. I don't think they have the dogs that we're accustomed to LSU having on that team. And if they are there, they're not being used correctly. I'm going to take Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart to pull one out.
All right. I like it. Hands down, without a doubt, the game of the week. It's in my own backyard here, Alex. Number 3, Oregon. Number 2, Ohio State. Man, what a big time matchup this is. This is the kind of matchups that the Big Ten had in mind when they brought over these Pac-12 schools into the conference. Of course, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC. This was what they were thinking about. These were the types of games they envisioned. Big time, prime time matchups, top 5, top 10 type matchups. Ohio State has been so good, Alex. They're averaging 46 points per game. They're limiting their opponents to only 6.8 points per game. Now, look, Oregon is really good. This is a very good team. And they've really bounced back from what was really a shaky start to the season with some close wins early. They didn't really look like a top 10 team that we thought they'd be coming into the year, but they're undefeated. They keep finding ways to win, so you got to give them credit. Ohio State, though, I think is a team that is just going to be too much for them to handle. They can really run the ball. We talked about this running game. We talked about transfer Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, maybe the best running back duo in the country. They've had trouble stopping the run. Oregon, that is, has had trouble stopping the run. I think they're in trouble here with this Ohio State running game. Dylan Gabriel, quarterback for Oregon, of course. Look, he's been good. He hasn't been great, and they expected him to be great when he transferred over to the school. He's been a little too turnover prone, especially in the red zone. That's not going to cut it in a game like this. I think the Ducks are going to have to be nearly perfect to pull off this win. And I think they're going to have to win the turnover battle as well. Now, look, Autzen Stadium is a massive home field advantage. But no offense to Texas, who we just talked about. I think Ohio State is the best team in the nation. And I think they're going to show why on Saturday and blow out Oregon on the road in a statement win and really open some eyes. Buckeyes, I think, are going to cover the 3 points easy in Eugene.
Excuse me. I'm going to go in the complete opposite direction. Now, Jeremiah Smith, young kid, we're going to hope to see some great things from him in highlights. But we talk about Ohio State and who in blowing out and taking care. Well, who has that been? Let's see. Akron, anybody? Western Michigan. Okay. Marshall, anybody? Anybody? Okay. Michigan State. Anybody? Just wait. Iowa, we know that they have the every 3 years Iowa has a team, but it's just not this year. So now they come and they start to face real talent in Oregon and a huge offensive line, bigger offensive line, a bigger defensive line than what they have. I'm taking Oregon all the way here over Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State has played anyone, whereas Oregon has at least faced some, a lot, at least Boise State for the most part. They haven't really faced anybody. They have a lot of similar opponents in Michigan State and everything. But, getting into it with Boise State and Ashton Genty, who is going to probably run away as the best running back of the year. But I think that Oregon is going to go in there. They know that this is a statement game. This is the first game, their first big game in a new conference. We know that everybody east is coming west. I'm pretty sure that'll flip over next year, but everybody east is coming west. I believe they go to Maryland sometime later on this year, but as of right now, everybody's coming west. And I think this is going to be different for Ohio State from a travel standpoint and from everything else. And going into that Duck Stadium, Brad, who had tickets to go and decided he'd rather go to Vegas. Now I'm just playing. But I think they're going to be intimidated. They're going to be This is not Michigan and walking into to the big house and everything. That no, this is coming west, someplace that they probably haven't been ever if throughout their entire existence. But now you're walking into Oregon. You're walking into Nike country. You're going to be in awe of what you see. That place is going to be loud. That place is going to be rocking. And I think they're going to be intimidated. And I'm going to take Oregon for the win.
All right, man, I like it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, and so. Yeah, I found out last minute that I got media credentials to this game, but I've already got a plane booked to go to Vegas to go see your Raiders, Alex. I'm going to the Raiders Steelers
okay,
game.
You did not say that. You did not say this.
Yeah, so I'll be covering the Raiders Steelers game for you guys live. And that's going to be fun. I'm definitely going to be making some bets and watching this game at a sports bar, or I should say a sports book somewhere on the strip, I'm sure. So yeah, it should be a good time, but we've got a big time weekend of football ahead, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor, hit the like and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on these exclusive YouTube podcast episodes. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, we do an audio only podcast as well, guys. Of course, that's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If it's also available here on YouTube, but wherever you get your podcast, you can listen to that. And do us a favor, guys. Check out the free newsletter as well at the website, pintglassfootball.com. We'll have some exclusive betting picks on there as well. Hope you guys enjoy.